This particular workshop, for me, marks significant progress in terms of celebrating what champions have been doing in their own respective areas to promote women's rights and gender justice.
Welcome to the Faith Actors for Justice workshop, where faith leaders and advocates gather from across the world to champion gender justice and challenge harmful practices.
It is the right time we stood up and saying that enough is enough when it comes to abusing women's rights, when it comes to ignoring matters to do with gender justice. And that's why this program is here.
We have had a number of awareness raising on common understanding on issues that affects women, and we've been significantly targeting leaders faith leaders to understand the issues of gender disparities and gender justice matters in the context of South Sudan. And we have been doing this. This has also given the chance for faith leaders to rise up and start having more conversations at faith spaces. And it has also given them a clear understanding on how they could advance gender justice.
Through positive masculinity, we have seen many men rising up, just coming out clearly to address the SGBV in our community, whereby right now, what I can say through the initiative we started, which is the Empowered Masculinity Couple Session, where men are now clearly and supporting women, and through dialogue, and where we see an issue of empowering women economically.
Sharing lived experiences, participants explore both obstacles and successes in faith-inspired advocacy for women's rights.
There's something about listening to each other's stories and learning from each other's stories and building communities of the wounded and of the victorious to actually find our solutions, our ways forward together, recognizing in our woundedness the seeds of struggle and the seeds of wisdom that can actually take us forward.
We have to dialogue with the men to be in the space until they see that it's justified for the women to be in the space. I was the only woman out of 20-something religious leaders. So it's not that it's so easy being in those spaces, but one, we need to have skills. So we have to work with the men as allies, as you said. We have to have interface dialogues to have your ideas pushed so that when you come to those spaces, they're supporting you.
One thing is to create safe space and inclusive for dialogue. If we create safe space for youths and elders, it will enable the elder to share knowledge with youths.
So that reflection has helped them, especially using the positive peace framework.
I had a chat with the bishop. I explained there is always a blind spot in each and every individual where you don't know yourself. So perhaps your socialization has built this attitude who has got the power to actually.
In my community, Muslim community in South Sudan, you could see that there were no any a female who memorizing the Holy Quran. Then we established a Quranic school that is just specifically to uplift women at that level of memorizing the Holy Quran. There was no any a female can preach in the radio, television, but now we have it. So all these examples, and also at the level of the leadership, now we have almost to 30 positions at the state and national level that granted for what? For the women. Those are the examples that shows how positive masculinity approach, in fact, is impacted in our community within the 3 years that since we have engaged in this initiative.
The challenge is the interpretation, from the cultural perspective. So, but this is also the problem for us in Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So, what is the solution for this? Because the religious teaching by itself is perfect, and it's a doctrine. We can't comment on that. So, what's the solution for the misleading of the gender justice from the religious perspective? Thank you.
Number one, it is the teachings of God are just because God himself is just. So if there is injustice in that interpretation, that is not God's intention. Again, if there is cruelty to anyone in the interpretation, that is not the intention of God. God is compassionate. If it is harmful, then that is not the intention of God, because God did not intend harm to us.
The emphasis is on reading the Bible as it is, understanding its historical context, and before applying.
Collaboration with other actors in this space is crucial, because there's no way we will deceive ourselves that we can address these issues independently. There are many, like for example, Faith Action, the organization that is bringing us into this conversation today. Yeah, if we are able to collaborate, listen from each other, borrow from each other, encourage and share our experiences from a religious point of view, from a biblical point of view, then borrowing from what is happening, generally in society with these actors is one way of collaborating, and by so doing, we will actually strengthen. We'll have a strong voice than standing out on our own.
One of the challenges is when people do not want to accept the reality, that this is a reality and it is here with us. Okay, it is not just far out there, it is within the community. Though some people might not speak out about it, but it is there. And then the other challenge is that some people think that it's not a priority. They feel there is something more that should be given first priority. For example, people will tell you, this is the mosque space, it's the pulpit here, you're supposed to be preaching about how people can become pious, how people can go to heaven. But you forget, for people to be able to practice their religion properly, you need to address these problems that are facing them. Again, refusing to accept that you have a duty as a religious leader, not only to give spiritual nourishment to the people listening to you, but also address their problem, the problems facing them every day. Gender-based violence is a problem.
Faith actors gather in celebration and recognition of remarkable individuals and organizations whose unwavering dedication to faith and justice has created lasting impact. This prestigious ceremony honors their tireless efforts, inspiring change and fostering hope within our communities. This is a night to shine a spotlight on their extraordinary achievements.
Our engagement in the strategic ways of advancing women's rights and gender justice through leadership and advocacy informed by a faith-based perspective is because we believe that in all our religious traditions, there is an intrinsic belief in the dignity of human beings. As such, the centrality of faith in our work gives us the motivation to continue with this good work. Thank you.
It's the little things that faith actors do or not do that make a difference in the community. Just to see how these faith actors are doing small things like interpreting texts to people differently, how they're able to use their day-to-day lives to change the lives of women, girls, and men in their communities. So for me, the biggest takeaway is it's in your hands. It's in the little things you do. It's in your day-to-day activities. You just need to be intentional and to be a champion for gender justice.